And now to talk about our module of the week, let's turn it over to Martin Anderson Klutz, a senior solutions engineer at Acquia and a maintainer of a number of Drupal modules and recipes of his own. Martin, what do you have for us this week?
Thanks, John. Have you ever wanted to work on code or configuration changes to your Drupal site in a non-production environment without having to copy over all the images and other content files? There's a module for that. It's called Stage File Proxy, and it was created in January of 2011 by Net Austin, but recent releases are by Stephen Musgrave, who listeners will probably recognize from the Needs Review initiative, among his many other Drupal contributions. In terms of versions available, there's 7.x-1.10, 3.0.0 Alpha 2, and 3.1.0, the last of which works with Drupal 10.3 and 11. It is actively maintained, has security coverage and test coverage, but in terms of documentation, there isn't a ton. That being said, the module has been the subject of numerous blog posts over the years, so there's probably going to be some online documentation to get you in the right direction. It has 15 open issues, 2 of which are bugs against the current branch, which is pretty great considering the module is in use by 16,710 sites according to Drupal.org. And once you have Stage File Proxy set up on your non-production site, when the environment gets a request for a content file it doesn't have, like an image, it will query the production site to create a local copy. It also has a mode where those requests are served 301 redirects to their location on the production server, so no files are ever copied. Once you have the module installed, you can set the origin website URL using the admin UI, using a drush variable set command, or you can add a line to your settings.php file. Also, if you have simple HTTP authentication set up on the site you want to pull from, for example, using the Shield module, you can add URL encoded versions of the username and password to the origin URL, and the module will still be able to copy down the files. Now, this module was previously covered in this podcast way back in episode 33, but I thought it was worth bringing back because it is so useful for working on sites locally or across non-production environments. Let's talk about Stage File Proxy.
So, show of hands, how many people on the call use this module?
I definitely
Okay,
do.
so that's 3 out of 5 listeners, 3 out of 5. For those of you that are using it, like a lot of times now I'm using DDev, used to use Lando, but it has like a pull function where you can pull database and files from your kind of remote development environment. Like, what's the benefit over that of using this module?
So I can jump in on that one.
Go for it.
If your customer site has, let's say, 3 gigabytes of PDFs, then doing that, drush or ddev command to copy all of those down are really bringing down a bunch of files that you probably don't need locally.
Yep.
So it's the ability to sort of only have it pull down the actual ones that are needed to render out a particular page that you might be looking at.
And at least with urban sites, we have at least 5 of them that I can think of that are all over 20 gigabyte files folders. Yep. And that actually starts to eat up your hard drive space.
I also imagine from like a security or information security standpoint, right? Like, so truth be told, like I don't know that I would take that practice on a client site, right? I only really use that practice on my personal site, but I can see it being better for security to have something like this in place. And just to be clear, and I guess I may have missed this in your description, but is it copying the files down or is it just proxying out to the production environment?
It's a setting, so you can choose for it to either copy it down or to just do a redirect.
Okay,
the other thing is it works with the image preset functionality as well. So, many times when you have an image on a page, you're not gonna have the actual file. It's just gonna be an image preset. It detects the preset, finds the original file, downloads that locally as well.
So
it'll also intervene because the Drupal site will try to look for the original image, right? And it'll understands that and handles that.
Yep.
So what if you have a blog post on your production site and it is unpublished and you're using this on your local environment and it's proxying the images, right? Will it still be able to get to that image even though it's not published?
No.
No. Okay.
I mean, it's only publicly available stuff.
Got it. Okay.
How you have your site set up. Like, I don't think unless you have it like in a private folder.
Actually, yeah, you're right, Josh. Sorry, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
If you upload a file, even if it's on an unpublished node or unpublished media entity, it's available publicly if you know what the URL
we'll
is.
grab it. Yeah, you're right.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It'll pull that down. Actually, and just to add to that, even if you have something in the private file system, it is still accessible too if you know the direct path, unless you have htaccess rules set up or you have it outside of your web document, web root. That's one of the reasons why Drupal core recommends that private files are outside of your web root, because otherwise it's accessible.
Interesting.
So yeah, you if you have files that truly need to be private, you need to make sure that they're
don't put them on the internet. Oh no, not the right answer. All right.
It's something that is somewhat related to content production too. Regarding this, it's sort of related. Dealing with files is actually really hard. And if you upload a PDF and then somebody gives you another PDF to upload, when you upload a second PDF, even if it's named the same thing, both PDFs are still live on your site.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a garbage collection system in Drupal that will eventually delete orphaned files, but it can sometimes take 6 months or more for that orphaned file to actually go away. And sometimes they never go away and it feels mysterious. And if there is a module out there that gives you more control over deleting files and uploading files.
So there is a module because I've had this problem. There is a module that you can enable that will allow for replacing files.
Oh my gosh.
So instead of
that would be great.
Instead of being like, oh, hey, I have the original version and version 0, you can click a checkbox and it'll just replace it.
Well, there's also a module that like gives you a new form element at the bottom for replacing, and you upload it. It will name the file. It'll replace the file. Like even I think, I'm not the one that installed this, but a client installed it a couple weeks ago. I think even if the new file has a different name, Drupal will rename it to the existing file name and replace it, so that you don't have to do it. Also,
I'll look for that module and put it in the show notes, because I don't recall what it was called. But yes, we had a client who would upload PDFs and then be like, oh, we got an update to this PDF and the old version can't be accessible because we'll get in trouble. So yes, that functionality was very, very crucial in like, here, now you can just replace the PDFs immediately.
Yeah, I'm laughing and smiling because Jerry and I talk about this all the time.
Yeah, it's a big pain point because we're constantly updating, like, especially if there's like a correction or something. So we have something, we need to make sure that it's not available.
Like, this will work 500% of the time. You're like, oh, that's not right. It's 50% of the time.
So I will say I love that this has turned into like a bonus module of the week. My quick Google foo has turned up 2 potential candidates here. So there is file replace, and there's another module called file field replace.
Yeah,
it's one of those. I'd have to look at the module page to tell you which one.
There's also media entity file replace, which is the one that my client is using.
Oh, okay. If you guys could put all 3 of those in the chat, I will look at them and then I will comment on which one we actually used. Because I think it was the file field replace, because that one adds a little checkbox that gives you the ability to replace the file or not replace the file.
Nice.
Of course, we're talking about files with the same name too. So if your file has a different name, then that's not going to work. But
I have a quick observation back to stage file proxy. If
thank
we're
you.
Okay
yes,
with
bring it back.
Since this is a developer module and it's more likely turned on in local environments where module updates are usually turned off. I turn off module updates for me. I don't want to see the warning. I'd bet money that our usage stats are very inaccurate. Now, Drupal.org usage stats are just typically inaccurate, but since they're inaccurate across the board, I generally think it's a pretty good gauge of, you know, how popular something is. But I bet 16,000 is very, very low for this particular module.
Would agree with that observation.
Well,
with no actual evidence, but
you could say one in 5 people aren't using the module.
There you go. Well, in our little collective
except here's the thing. Jerry is using the module. He just didn't know.
That's why it's only one. That's why it's only 1 in 5 and not 2 in 5.
I would be surprised if your projects are not using it either.
Personally, I don't think we are, but that's just my 2 cents.
Possible.
All right. Well, Martin, as usual, you have provided a rousing module of the week, and there was even some bonus content in there. If folks wanted to suggest or recommend a module of the week, how could they go about doing that?
Thanks, Sean. We're always happy to get nominations for module of the week in the Talking Drupal channel of Drupal Slack, or folks can reach out to me directly as ManClue on all of the Drupal and social channels.